This Warlock Stasis build freezes everything. You can actually run around in endgame PvE like an ice god, just slowing and freezing everything in your path, regardless of what adds there are, and the best part about this build is it works in any season, as it doesn't rely heavily on seasonal mods, and you don't even have to do anything. Your turrets will do all the work for you with a 100% uptime, meaning you'll never have to even look at adds to freeze them. Just a simple throw to the ground, and everything around you will eventually be frozen, and you can be on your way. Now this is an updated stasis build from a few seasons back, but it does follow a similar setup with a few slight changes, so guys, if you like this one, then be sure to leave a rating, comment, subscribe and share for more, and now let's get frosty. So guys, before we jump into the build video, I will first point out that if you do like these builds and you want to see more like this, then you can find the full collection of builds, new and updated ones, in the playlist link down below. So go check that out afterwards because you might just find your new best build. But today with this one, this is your updated Stasis Warlock Infinite Turret build, which lets you have these Stasis turrets with a 100% uptime, meaning you can just place down a turret before the previous one has even expired. Which is great in all activities because you can freeze champions that you either don't intend to kill because you're underleveled and physically can't handle them, or you want to freeze champions and take them down slowly without them hitting you back. Regardless of how you use this build, you will have unlimited and infinite stasis turrets from your grenade ability, and you'll be able to use your rift with almost a 100% uptime as well, because you'll be chaining between both of those abilities on a loop to make this build as effective as possible. So the way you'll use this build is first throw down a stasis turret and a healing rift. This will instantly give you almost half of your grenade energy back. Then while your stasis turret is slowing and freezing enemies, it will generate stasis shards which act as elemental wells. Collecting them will give you ability energy to all your abilities. Then getting a weapon kill will spawn 2 void elemental wells. Picking up those wells will give you energy to your lowest ability, which would most of the time be your rift, while also giving you damage reduction. From here you'll go around killing everything, letting your turrets freeze everything and so on. You will be able to repeat the process by throwing another turret down and another rift to keep the loop going, so that you always have a rift and turret up for whenever you need them. Just make sure that you place your rift down after using your grenade, as it will generate grenade energy, and you don't want to do this with full grenade energy. The build is perfect for those who want to easily complete endgame PvE solo or with a team, but you struggle due to champions like overloads melting you before you can actually stun them. Just be aware that if you stun overloads while they are frozen, you'll basically unstun them, which can be a real pain, because they'll start regenerating health right away. So I'd use this on overloads when you are continuously shooting them with overload rounds, and not a weapon that can't stun them, because once they are stunned and or frozen, when you break them out of being frozen, they'll become unstunned. Just be aware of that. It can cause a few problems, but honestly the build is more useful than anything because of the infinite slowing and freezing with those automated turrets. Now with this build, starting with the subclass, we will be using a Warlock Shadebinder Winter's Wrath along with a healing rift. Then we'll use the Dust-Filled Grenade because it has a shorter cooldown, but we will be using them to turn into turrets anyway, because the first aspect we have is going to be Bleak Watcher. Press and hold your grenade to convert your grenade into a stasis turret that fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. Slowing targets continuously will eventually freeze them, and because of our second aspect being Glacial Harvest, those frozen targets will create stasis shards for us, which we can then pick up to get melee energy. And of course freezing champions and bosses will spawn a lot more, but with the mods that we're running, those stasis shards aren't just going to give us melee energy, but instead they'll give us energy to all our abilities, which is good because we want not just the grenade back quickly, but our rift as well. For the fragments, we have Vesper of Torment, where we get grenade energy when we take damage. Pretty nice fragment that you always want to run with this build. Then we have Whisper of Durance, so that our slows from abilities will last longer, and we'll get a +10 to the strength stat as well. Whisper of Shard, so that shattering stasis crystals boosts our grenade recharge rate, but I'm mostly using this for the +10 to resilience. And then lastly, Whisper of Conduction, so that nearby stasis shards track to our position. But again, using this for the extra stats. So if you want to, you can swap these fragments out, but all of these fragments are going to benefit the build a lot, especially the Whisper of Torment, as we are a grenade ability build and we want that back as quick as possible so that we can keep throwing down turrets. So we have this subclass set up, but you can go a little further with this build. So before we jump into the mods, I just want to go through a few good exotics that pair really well with this build, and the first one is Aegis Scepter. This is good for ad clearing and works nicely as it can slow and freeze targets. We also have Traveler's Chosen. This is a good exotic to generate ability energy, although it's not required, but it is another option to choose from. And then we also have No Time to Explain, which can be benefited by shooting slowed and frozen enemies too. I'd only use these exotics though if you are going to go into easier content like strikes, dungeons, or something that you can do easily without needing a strict loadout. But if you're going into endgame PvE, then a good loadout would be Arbalest to cover the anti-barriers, a bow or pulse rifle to stun overloads or unstoppables, and then a good linear to deal DPS. Now for the exotic armor, the main and probably the only exotic I'd go with is Eye of Another World, because this highlights priority targets and improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, melee and rift abilities. This is a 50% cooldown reduction, so it's perfect to getting your abilities back faster, because it's a passive stat, which means it stacks with tier 10 stats to give you an even faster cooldown. For the main base mods, first up we have elemental shards. This is so that stasis shards generated can count as stasis elemental wells, which is good because it will give us ability energy to all our abilities instead of just our melee. On top of this, we will run a reaping well maker so that we can spawn in void wells when using our class ability and getting a weapon kill. We'll get to that in just a second, but the next mod you'll want is bountiful wells. What this does is stack elemental well spawning mods, which means you can get more wells from one well spawning mod. So you'll notice that instead of your reaping well maker spawning one well in, it'll actually spawn two. But for those void wells we do spawn in, using Well of Tenacity we will get damage reduction when picking them up. So as we're spawning in two, you could leave one on the ground for 5 to 10 seconds and then grab that later to extend the duration of that damage resist. But other than that, the last one is Well of Restoration, so that picking up the stasis elemental wells will grant us additional energy to all our abilities that has the lowest energy, which in most cases will be a rift. So having low recovery isn't a big issue, since we have a lot of cooldown mods to combat that slow regenerating rift, which in turn makes up for it not being tier 10. But if you have this build set up with a triple 100 stat build, you will be spawning rifts and turrets down like there's no tomorrow. It's honestly insane, but if you wanted to, you could stack the Well of Restoration mod instead of running void wells, so you can get more ability energy that way instead. As for the normal mods though, back in the helmet we have our ammo finder for a heavy weapon along with a siphon mod, but you only want to use this if you're going to use stasis weapons to generate the orbs. Otherwise in the arms we're running grenade kickstart. You could run this twice if you wanted to, just take out the stat mod, but I'd personally leave the other one free so that you can slot on your champion mod that you need. Then in the chest we have our damage resist mods. Legs we have our scavenger mod as usual, along with better already to trigger health regen when picking up orbs. And then lastly in the class we have double bomber for the reduced grenade cooldown when activating your rift. This paired with grenade kickstart gives you almost half, if not more, of your grenade energy back instantly when just throwing down a stasis turret and putting down a rift. And then picking up those shards and wells will give you the remaining energy, so having stat mod isn't required, but it is preferred, so the order of stats you want is 100 discipline, 100 resilience, and then max out recovery as high as possible. With the artifact this season, for Season of Plunder, there isn't really anything that benefits stasis that much, so the build is a good starting build for any season regardless of the mods available, so you can use this as a base setup and then apply any good new or returning seasonal mods that come in during the season you're playing and using this build with. But overall this build is one of the best Warlock builds in Destiny 2 that you can use if you get a bit sick of the Arc 3.0 or any other light subclass builds. It's actually perfect for Grandmaster Nightfalls and any master activity where you're massively underpowered, because just freezing everything makes the game easy mode, as adds just can't do anything because they're frozen. And the same goes with champions and mini bosses, so you could just take them down slowly with your primary weapon and eventually kill them while they're freezing infinitely. It's a really good build to use, but it's not currently the meta, as we do have Arc mods for Arc 3.0 and other builds like Solar and Void still dominate in endgame PvE with their new updates they had over the past couple of seasons. But you should definitely give this one a try if you don't like any of the other builds this season. Now guys, that there is your newly updated Warlock Stasis build for infinite turrets in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of Plunder, or Season 18. Next, as always, be sure to check out the full playlist of new and updated builds down below, because I do cover builds here every week on the channel, and you might just find your new favourite build. But for now guys, don't forget to leave a rating to show your support, subscribe if you want to see more, and whatever you Guardians get up to, have a good one, and I'll see you all in the next build video.